Close your eyes. You are a teacher, and you, my friend, have just mistaken a transgender boy for a female student. You hear gasps all around the room. What do? How might your students react? How should we as teachers navigate these complicated problems of race, gender, ableism, and so much more when they pop up in our classrooms? Well, may I direct your attention to intersectionality. This is one of the concepts Jamie, a secondary English teacher, used to handle these finicky problems. Being met with this situation in his first year on the job, Jamie understandably had felt anxious and unprepared. Motivated to proactively build a culture of inclusivity in his classrooms, Jamie proactively made it known that words with a history of hate would not be tolerated. Jamie not only stressed the importance of respecting individual differences, he also models the respect he wants his students to show. He leveraged his identity as a gay African-American secondary school teacher, teaching in a predominantly white Jewish neighborhood to connect with other students of color. So, what is intersectionality, and how did it help Jamie navigate his students' many identities? In a nutshell, intersectionality is acknowledging that people's experiences are not solely dictated by a single axis of social division. Aspects of ethnicity, gender, class, sexuality, age, religion, and ableness all combine, interact, and sometimes even contradict to shape people's personal experiences. Now let me ask you, if you're a doctor, would you treat all your patients the same way? As we can see, different patients have different illnesses. A professional doctor understands that treating illnesses is complicated and nuanced. Now let's go back to our classrooms. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, 1 in 3 Australians were born overseas, and currently, in 2020, there are over 7.6 million migrants in Australia. Undoubtedly, our classrooms are getting more and more diverse. So, what does intersectionality have to do with all of this? Well, in a plethora of ways. Intersectionality can help us address the ever-diversifying communities reflected inside our classrooms. The Australian Department of Education, Employment and Workplace Relations states, schools that can successfully cultivate family-school partnerships honor the diversity of experiences in their community. Building such tight-knit relationships requires building bridges across different social divides, such as culture, values, language, and race. When schools fail to create such connections, children may drop out or find other alternatives. For example, many parents, specifically African American parents, have resorted to homeschooling due to the many obstacles their children had to face in schools, namely, low standards, stereotypes of violence, and lack of care. Even in our classrooms, our students' ideas, individual experiences, stereotypes, religions, and values don't just get left behind when they go to school. Clashes between social class, religion, and political views can and will occur within our classroom, as our students' positionality can greatly influence how they treat others. In severe cases, children may get bullied or isolated inside the classroom due to their individual positionality. Therefore, utilizing an intersectional framework is essential to create an inclusive classroom culture where all students' differences are acknowledged, just like Jamie. Intersectionality frameworks can also boost the effectiveness of educational policy and research. Intersectionality has allowed for better all-encompassing interventions, activism, and school policies. For example, when creating policy for students coming from low socioeconomic status in schools, intersectionality should be considered a must. As according to Davison, in Australia alone, there are 3.24 million impoverished people. Within that demographic, women and girls are much more likely to live in poverty. People with disabilities also have a high poverty rate, and migrant groups from North Africa and the Middle East face low employment rates, coincidentally leading to poverty. The 2020 report clearly shows that aspects of poverty are greatly intertwined with other social axes of division and systematic oppression. The way class, gender, ableness had intersected was further exacerbated during the recent COVID-19 epidemic. The impact of COVID-19 on children's well-being was widespread. The mental and economic strain COVID had on families may erode students' sense of safety, or in extreme cases, lead to domestic violence. Aspects of ageism had also come into play, as children's well-being and voices regarding the shutdown of schools were not considered. Seemingly, children having to stay home was only seen as a barrier for parents going to work. Although it is important to recognize children are not a homogeneous group, children belonging in ethnic minorities, immigrants, disabled children, and impoverished children have compounding effects of race, ableism, and class that make them much more disproportionately affected by COVID. In his book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Paul Furey famously states, "There is no such thing as neutral education. Education either functions as an instrument to bring about conformity or freedom. Indeed, as educators, we should all work towards more inclusive, diverse classrooms. A powerful tool to help us achieve that is intersectionality." So, what is your intersectionality? And how may that influence how you interact and perceive others? Thank you.